PonyTown has a lot of great features. I made an entire video talking about some of the best features in PonyTown. If you want to see that, you can click the card in the top right or wait till the end of the video and click off of this one and go to that one, or even just look at the cards at the end of this video. There's many ways to get to that, but today I want to talk about some of the worst features here in PonyTown. Starting, of course, with tables. Tables absolutely suck here in PonyTown. I think everyone can agree to that. PonyTown's tables absolutely suck garbage. So bad that I can't take anything and put it on this table, right? I can open up my build menu here and I can get, I don't know, one of the most simple things like a trophy, and I can't put it on top, or I guess a goblet? I never knew this was called a goblet. Anyway, I cannot put this on this table at all in any shape, form, or fashion. You can see I'm spamming it all over this table, and I can't put nothing on it whatsoever. In fact, a lot of things I can't even put on this table. I can barely put that on there. But there's a lot of stuff on there that I can't put on there, right? Out of these two objects here, we have a globe and we have a book. Which of these two objects do you think I can put on this table, and which of these two objects do you think I cannot put on the table? I'll give you about 3 seconds to answer. Well, if you answered book, you're wrong, because guess what? I can't put that on that table at all. Look at that. It's underneath the table. That's insane. But then you may be saying to yourself, there's no way I can put that globe on the table, because that makes no sense, right? It's huge. Boom. Guess what? I can do that. I can just put it right on top of there, and it's on the table now, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's on the table, and I think it's totally fine with that being allowed to be on the table. I actually kind of like it. It's kind of a neat little thing, right? But I should definitely be able to put that book on the table, right? I mean, the tables are wildly inconsistent anyway. I mean, you saw there, this small one, I can't put nothing on it. But there's other random tables like this large round one, and on that large round one, I can put this book on there. That's right, this large table can hold that, but again, we get like a medium study table or something like that, right? I can't put a book on that one for some reason. I don't know why, but I can't. The point is, this is probably definitely the worst thing on this list. But we have more things to talk about, such as torches and things on walls, right? First of all, we have a couple of torches here, right? We have a lit torch and a lit torch. Well, actually, one of them is a regular torch, and the other one is a lit torch. I personally think it's a bad feature to have it to where the lit torch cannot be blown out by the user. No matter how much I boop this, or sneeze on it, or whatever else like that. Here, I can sneeze on it. Look at that, I'm sneezing on it. It doesn't blow it out, but I can blow this one out. This is because there's more than one kind of torch. There is, of course, the regular torch, which I can place down and I can blow out and stuff like that, which is what I'm doing here. And then, of course, there is the torch lit, which is always lit, and there's literally nothing you can ever do about it. I like the idea that there's a torch that will always be lit on, even during the day, but I still think that the user should still be able to boop it and turn it out or something like this. Part of the reason why I think this is the case, that you should be able to do this, is because, for one, it opens up the ability to use certain torch-based minigames during the day, but also because it's just going to confuse a lot of players. In fact, I'm pretty sure, without saying anything and coming up here and booping this torch off and then not being able to do it with this one, 100% of you would have been like, what the fuck is going on? Why can't he blow this torch out? I could have made a whole thing about that and very much confused you. But another thing about it is, why is the lit torch and the unlit torch even separated in the first place? Of course, the same is true for the paper lantern and like the unlit paper lantern and stuff like that. They're separated, of course, as well. But again, why are they separated at all? This should be some kind of subcategory or some kind of toggle that you should be able to do, and that brings us, of course, up to these things here. Because again, we have objects that can go on the wall, such as these dish racks and stuff like that. They can go on the floor and you can run into them, and they have colliders and everything like that. You can't go behind them. But then you have the wall ones, which go on the wall or up in the sky or whatever, and you can't bump into them because they have colliders. They don't have colliders or anything like that, right? So we have some with colliders and some without colliders, some that are in the air, some that are on the ground, and it's a super confusing thing, for one, because like these next to each other, it's very hard to tell the difference. But also, again, I feel like this should also be a toggle, where if I have an object like this cabinet or whatever, I should be able to press a certain button and then immediately switch to the version that is in the air, the wall version, if you will. That's what they call it anyway. So I think that's definitely the case, right? That should definitely be how it works. I feel like I should just be able to press a button or do some kind of action to just toggle it on and off rather than them being separated. This wouldn't only shorten the build menu, but it would also be a super useful feature, because then you wouldn't have to search through both of them and accidentally get them mixed up when you're building and stuff. And of course, let's talk about some things slightly outside the game, because I want to talk about Patreon exclusives, because it's something that a lot of people kind of complain about. I've heard these complaints directed towards me before and stuff like that, but the game is 100% free. You could play all of PonyTown and have all these awesome things and stuff like that, but unless you pay them, there's certain things that you don't get. For example, the supporter tags, the supporter text colors, like the red and orange and the goldish color and the blue color and stuff like that. Ooh, the blue is so shiny, oh my gosh. But not just that, there's also other things too, like the limits that increase. I can have 10 extra people in my party if I'm a member and stuff like that. For one, I think that the party members should just be a set amount, and that should just be how much it is. I feel like this is definitely one of the things that shouldn't be behind a paywall. I can see why certain things like 25 extra slots for your house objects or an extra slot for saving maps. I can understand why having extra maps should be behind some kind of paywall, because if you didn't have any limits, or if the limit was like the same for everyone, it could end up causing certain issues because the server might get overloaded or something like that with objects and all this data and stuff that it has to store. I can maybe understand that, but at the same time, there's other weird things too. For example, I am a Patreon member, so if I go over here to the main map for a brief amount of time, I have a mini map. That's right, I have an entire game element restricted behind a paywall. Something I have, something that other Patreon members and stuff like that have, that you don't have unless you pay them money, which I find very strange, of course, especially since it's not even a tier 1 thing. Let's see how far you got to go. You actually got to go to you have to go to just tier 2, which I guess isn't that big of a deal, but it's still really weird that this is something that is completely restricted behind a paywall, because you would think it's just something that everyone should have, or if it's not ready to be sent out to everyone, why send it out to even anyone at all, right? Because of course you can argue that the minimap isn't ready, so it's like a tester type feature, and so it shouldn't be given to everyone, because I mean, look at this, the minimap doesn't look that great, right? It does show you where all the players are and stuff like that, but again, if it's not finished, why release it to anyone at all, rather than just keep it under wraps, keep it in like your beta servers, your tester servers, or whatever you want to call them. And then once it's ready, then release it, and then release it to everyone. That's what you've done with every single feature in the game except the minimap. That is one thing that I definitely can agree with when it comes to paywalls and stuff like that. When it comes to PonyTown, it is a super weird paywall. Supposedly the minimap will come out to all players once it's finished, but again, why release it at all if it's not finished? Anyway, let's move on to our last couple things here. For one, we have these small rocks, these water rocks. This is one of my favorite items in the game because there's so many water rocks. There's so many of them. I'm not even sure how many there are because it's kind of hard to count because you can't go to each individual rock. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's a bad feature, specifically because I can place this down and then suddenly my rock is different. I can place it down again and suddenly my rock is different. I can place it down again and suddenly my rock is different. But if I wanted this specific rock right here over and over and over and over again, it's very annoying to have to toggle or either place them down. So place it down and then just keep placing them down again and again until I get them again. But if I wanted that specific rock, I have to sit here and spam the item over and over and over again until I finally get that rock again, and then come back through and delete them all with my brush, just like this. Oh my gosh, this is so much extra work. And then I can get my crowbar or whatever else and then move them how I want. Or I can click it and then I can click it again and it'll give me a random object, or I can click it again and it'll give me a random rock, and I can click it again and give me a random rock, or I can hit escape and it'll give me a random rock every time, or shift and it'll give me a random rock every time, except the sticky keys things will happen or whatever like that. I can even hit control a bunch on my keyboard and I can switch between rocks. I can switch between this large rock and then back to the water rock, and the water rock that I had previously might not be the same water rock anymore. It'll just completely be random every single time, and this is a very annoying mechanic for a number of reasons. This isn't just with the water rocks. I think this is the most egregious example of it because I have the book, right? What? The book. I have a book. I can't like rotate this, which is another thing in of itself. We'll get into that in a second. But if I hit escape, there's only 2 options for it, so it's not as bad, right? Obviously, I can hit here and I can toggle it and switch it from side to side or whatever like that. And that's why it's not as bad for a lot of things. But when it comes to the rocks, I love the idea that every time I place it, it can be completely randomized to another thing, because this can add a lot of nature things and stuff like that, because nature isn't very repeating usually. And I can see why that's the case. But in a lot of the times, you're going to want a very specific rock. And maybe I like this rock, and I want this rock, and only this rock every time I place the rock down or something, right? At the very least, at the absolute very least, you should make this consistent to the point to where every single time I click it, I know exactly what the next water rock's going to be. I know that this is water rock 3, this is water rock 4, this is water rock 5, this is water rock 6. But that's not the case. Every single time I click it, it's going to be absolutely randomized, and I feel like that if nothing else, you should at least make it in a certain order or something like that, right? So that is another one of the things that I really don't like in PonyTown, one of the features that I think is actually really bad for the game. But finally, let's talk about rotation, and this is also very similar to that, where you can hit escape or whatever like that to get a random version of it. So let's talk about that, because we have a new item, right? So we have the crowbar. I can't rotate these objects or anything like that, but out of these 3 objects down here below me, which of these objects do you think I can actually rotate with this wrench? We have some mushrooms, which maybe I can rotate those, because you can see there's 2 different versions of them, right? Then we have this rock right here. Again, maybe I can rotate it because there's 2 versions of them, right? And then we have the trophies or whatever else like that you want to call them over here. And again, maybe I can rotate it because I can see there's 2 different versions there. However, whatever your guess was, you've done guessed it. It's too late to guess now. It was the trophy. That is actually the only thing on this that I can rotate. I can't rotate the rocks. I can't rotate the mushrooms. And again, this goes back to the strangeness of like the randomized bit of it. So in a way, you can't even argue that it has something to do with like nature and stuff like that, because it does the same thing with the book, as I showed you earlier. If I get the book, I can't rotate the book. If I press R, it just equips the thing and says I can't rotate the object. But I can click it, I can hit a Control or Shift or Escape or whatever like that and randomize it so that it is now facing the other direction. I understand that this is like a flipped thing, and so maybe you can argue that, oh, it's flipped, so you're not rotating it, therefore we're not going to add rotatable things to this or nothing like that. But what about the trophy? This is only being flipped. That's all it does. Whenever I rotate it, it literally only flips it back and forth. Those are the only 2 rotations it has. So you should argue then that if that's your arguments, then these should not be rotatable or something like that, right? There's definitely some kind of inconsistencies here, and I think that is another bad feature in the game, where there's a lot of these different inconsistencies, but especially like this, where it looks intentional, seems intentional, because the rocks have been this way forever and they never added it. Same thing with the mushrooms and things like that. With the mushrooms that are on the ground like that, you could actually even add more rotations to them too, but these are the only 2 rotations to them. I can hit escape or whatever else like that and rotate it back and forth, but in theory, I should have one that's facing the bottom left, one that's facing the top left, one that's facing the top right, one that's facing the bottom right, and then you can add more rotation to it. You could probably even do something similar with the large rocks, and there's all kinds of other objects like this. The pumpkin, for example, the stem, I can make it to where it's facing one way or the other. Why isn't this just a rotatable thing? Why does it have to be like every time I click it, it's random if it's going to be that direction or not, right? There's so many objects like this. And it's insane. Some of the other ones, like I said, I can somewhat understand because the water rocks, there's so many of them. It would be hard to do it, maybe. I don't know. But that is one of the things that annoy me the most, because it's been that way forever, and I've always said the water rocks are so annoying because of that. But anyway, these are some of the features that I think are the worst here in PonyTown. Let me know what you guys think are the worst PonyTown features in the comments below. And again, if you guys want to see the best PonyTown features highlighted in a video, you can click the card in the top right or wait till the end of the video and go to it that way. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video in any manner of way. And if you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, or sharing the video around or something like that, because it definitely helps out the channel a ton. And I'd very, very, very much appreciate that. So do all those wonderful things like that, because when you do wonderful things like that, not only to get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become one for yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.